All right, let's dive into this projectile and scoring module. So here I am in Unity. I've got the project opened up, ready to go. If you want to import the module into your own project, all you got to do is go over to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and select the Projectile Scoring Module Unity package file. I'm going to open that, and the Import Unity package window opens up. You just want to click Import. Once that's done, in your Projects panel, in the Mona Library, VS for visual scripting, projectile module folder, there's a projectile module prefab. You're going to click, drag and drop that onto your stage, into your scene, and ta-da, we're ready to go. So now, if you click on the projectile module in your inspector window, mine is here docked on the right hand side. If you don't see it, go to Window, General, Inspector, and that's going to open it up. And if you want to drag it around, place it somewhere else, click on the tab for the inspector window and just drag it where you want it to be. So our first parameter in the module is the activation key. That's basically the key that the user is going to press on the keyboard in order to engage and turn on the ability to shoot or throw whatever it is you want them to shoot and throw. So I'm going to click on that. We have this menu. You can scroll up and down and select whatever key it is you want them to press to activate it. I'm going to put it at 0. So next up, we've got the shoot sound effect. Basically exactly what it sounds like. It's just basically the sound that happens when you either shoot or throw. Maybe it's a swish for a basketball, or in this case we have a laser burst. You can click on this little button right here, and that's going to open up this window so that you can see the files within your project and just select it. So I could come in here and I can select whatever sound that I want, or you can go into your folders in the projects panel and find your sound and drag and drop it into that location as well. So then next up, we've got the projectile. This is the actual projectile object that you're going to shoot or throw. So in this case, we have a laser. So in my projectiles folder, you can see that I have a laser object, which I can just drag and drop in there. Or like I said, you can also come in here and you can select it from your library of files in your project. So then next up, we've got force. Force is just basically how it sounds. It's basically how much force are we propelling our object with. So for a laser, we've got it at about 120, but for something like a basketball, you might want to do something more like 12 or 15 or something like that, maybe a little higher. You can play around with that. And then next up, we've got the force mode, which is just basically a type of force or a type of engaging or instigating the force. So in this case, we've got it set to value change. For a basketball, you might want to do impulse, but you've also got acceleration or force. You can play around with those parameters. And as you may have seen in the workshop, you can also ask ChatGPT for some recommendations for different types of physics. So if you wanted a tennis ball, you can ask it what would be a good force and force mode for a tennis ball. It could even help you with how to apply like bounce and things like that, utilizing a physics material. But so anyway, moving right along. Then we've got destroy projectile on impact. So whether your projectile is a bullet or a basketball or tennis ball, whatever it is, whether or not it's going to actually destroy, disappear once it comes into contact with our targets. So, for example, a basketball, you wouldn't want it to disappear when it hits the hoop or scores a point or whatever. You would want it to bounce off of that. In our case, we have a laser. We want it to disappear. We, of course, don't want our laser bouncing off of objects. So I'm going to leave that to true. If you uncheck it, it basically just makes it false. Next up, we've got destroy target on impact. So the actual target, like in this case, in our example, we've got this target right here. Do we want it to disappear when the laser shoots it, or do we want it to remain there and just score us some points? So this is set to true. We want it to disappear. If we didn't, we would go ahead and uncheck that. So similar to with the basketball instance, you wouldn't want the basketball hoop to disappear when the user scores and the basketball comes in contact with it. So you would turn that off as well. So then finally, we've got the projectile spawn position. Now this is basically the position from which the object is going to be projected from. So for example, for a particular use case for Z Creative, we had actually created it or tried to make it so that the lasers, there would be 2 of them, and they would shoot from the player's eyes. So what we did was we went to the spawn point object in the hierarchy. This is just basically the Mona default character for you to define, to place it where you want your player to spawn when they visit your world. But we can use it in this case to get a position for our projectile. So for example, I'm going to right click, I'm going to select 3D object, and let's just create a sphere. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to resize this sphere, and I'm going to move it to right about there, right about where the eyes are at. And then I can look at the inspector and I can see its position. So the X is 1.681 and the Z is 0.248. So then we don't need that anymore. I would take those values and I would come in here to the projectile module and I would change the Y and or the X, Y, and Z accordingly to whatever we determined that would be with our little sphere there. So that's how you can figure that out. Or you can just come in here and you can guess and you can play with it, whatever. So that's basically it. So let's go ahead and test that really quickly. And then we're going to get into, we've got an error here. Basically, Mona's quality assurance is letting us know that the projectile module that we included in our project is actually outside of the space object. It has to be within it. Everything in your scene needs to be within the space object right here. So that's all. It's just warning us. And then we can go ahead and hit playground and test it. So Mona is going to open up our browser to the playground, and it's also going to open up our file explorer so that we can select our playground files from it and drag and drop it into our browser into the Monaverse playground for testing. Alright, so we've got our scene, we've got our scoreboard and our little data and all that stuff there, and I'm going to hit 0 as we set it up to activate our shooting capability, and there we go. So because we had it set up to where the object disappears and the bullet as well on impact, of course both those things disappeared. But let's go ahead and modify that. So we'll turn off destroy projectile on impact and turn off destroy target on impact just to check it out. Hit 0 to turn it on, and as you can see, neither the bullets or the target disappeared. Alright, so back in Unity, let's go over how to create targets. So real quick, I'm going to go back to my projectile module, and I'm going to turn back on the destroy projectile and target on impact. And I'm going to click on our example target. And in the inspector, you'll see we have a variables component with variables for points and sound effect. The points is, of course, how many points is this hitting this object going to generate. I'm going to change that to 500 just for demonstration. And the sound effect is the sound that it's going to make when you impact that object, when you actually shoot it, hit it, throw something at it, or whatever. So we've already got it set up to electro thump. That's fine. We're going to right click on the 3 little dots here for the menu, and we're going to select copy component to copy that variables component. And I'm going to click on the projectile module. Actually, I'll just click in space. I'm going to right click. I'm just going to create a box, 3D object, cube. And just for fun, let me add our target material on there. And let's move that up. So all I want to do, I want to select the object that I want to be a target for our game or whatever it is we got going on, our basketball hoop, whatever. And I'm going to come in here into the inspector window, and you can right click on just about any one of these little 3 dots for the menus of any one of the existing components. Just click on it and select paste component as new. So now we've got our variables component attached to that box. We've got it set up to 500. Actually change this to 250. And we've got our sound effect. Again, we can click on this button to change the sound effect. or we can go into our folder and we can drag and drop it right into there. So let's go ahead and test that. Actually, before we do that, so other objects that you may want to have a sound when you hit it, but you don't want them to score points. So for example, this back wall back here, or the floor, for example, I don't want the user to score points for shooting it or for a ball dropping on it or whatever. So I've put a variable component on there, just like I showed you, copied and pasted from our example target, and I set the points to 0. But I also have a sound, so it will still make sound, but it's not going to score points. So it acts as if though it's just a miss, so you didn't hit a target. But we're going to treat it as one that is sort of a non-target, if that makes any sense. So anyway, let's go ahead and press play. Okay, so we're going to hit 0 to activate our shooting capability. Remember, we changed the value to 500 on that object, and we easily turned that box into a target and made the value of the points 250. So there you go. Enjoy. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to go into the support and Discord channel and ask whatever questions you may have, and look forward to seeing what you come up with.